Swadharmastanupalanam Shasatonyan yatha shastram Anapadyut patan iha. Ragna of the king or the executive head. He certainly. Paramaha supreme. Dharmaha occupational duty. Swadharmasta one who is faithful to his prescribed duty. Anupalanam giving protection always. Shasataha while ruling. Anyan others. Yata according to. Shastram rulings of scriptures. Anapadi without danger. Utpatan persons going astray. Iha as a matter of fact. Translation. The supreme duty of the ruling king is to give all protection to law-abiding persons and to chastise those who stray from the ordinances of the scriptures in ordinary times when there is no emergency. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In the scriptures there is mention of apadharma, or occupational duty at times of extraordinary happenings. It is said that sometimes the great sage Vishvamrita had to live on the flesh of dogs in some extraordinary dangerous position. In cases of emergency, one may be allowed to live on the flesh of animals of all description, but that does not mean that there should be regular slaughterhouses to feed the animal eaters, and that this system should be encouraged by the state. No one should try to live on flesh in ordinary times simply for the sake of the palate. If anyone does so, the king or the executive head should punish him for gross enjoyment. There are regular scriptural injunctions for different persons engaged in different occupational duties, and one who follows them is called svadharmasta, or faithful in one's prescribed duties. The Bhagavad Gita 18:48. It is advised that one should not give up his occupational prescribed duties, even if they are not always flawless. Such svadharma might be violated in case of emergency, if one is forced by circumstances, but they cannot be violated in ordinary times. The state executive head is to see that such svadharma is not changed by the follower, whatever it may be, and he should give all protection to the follower of Swadharma. The violator is subject to punishment in terms of the Shastra, and the duty of the king is to see that everyone strictly follows his occupational duty as prescribed in the scriptures. We are reminded of the verse from the Gita, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam dharmasya tadatmanam sijami ham and paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya tadushkitam dharma samstapanataya sambhavami yuge yuge. The two verses which describe Krishna's mission indicate that it is not only Krishna's mission, but it is the mission of those who represent Krishna. And such a person is the executive head of state. The ruler may be a king or president or governor of any sort. It's not necessarily that we're talking about the supreme executive head, but for that matter, all persons who are in responsible positions must uphold the Dharma. What is the Dharma? The Dharman tu shakshat bhagavat pranitan. Dharma is not man-made. Dharma is that law which is enunciated by God. As Prabhupada often says, man-made laws can be changed. In one country you may drive on the left side of the street, in another on the right side. These are relative to time, place, and circumstance. But the laws of God are irrevocable and can only be changed under extreme circumstances. And there is provision because God is not callous, hard-hearted, indifferent. He's most responsive. And therefore, there are circumstances in which, as we see, Vishvamrita could eat an animal's flesh, not just any animal, but a lowly dog's flesh, and not incur any sinful reaction because of circumstance. Of course, it itself was a sinful type of reaction, because why else would someone be put into a position where they have to eat dog flesh? It must be due to some past act. If people bemoan their fate, we have to tell them that you are suffering or enjoying whatever may be the result of your past actions. So, in any case, there is provision. Some exceptions can be made to the rule, but exceptions don't become the rule. They remain exceptions. In other words, slaughterhouses are never to be, we never condone slaughterhouses of any sort. This is very, very heinous type of activity. It is the sign of great cruelty to slaughter animals. Lord Buddha, for example, came into this world just for the sake of protecting, just for the sake of giving protection to the poor animals who were being slaughtered in the name of religion, just like we hear kosher meat. What is the meaning of kosher meat? An animal can be, you can't eat an animal who has its blood in it. The blood has to be drained off, as if, slaughtering the animal and draining off its blood is an act of mercy. What does it mean? That the person who's eating the meat doesn't have to think about the bloodthirsty nature of the act of killing it? Is that why the blood is contaminated and now it is not contaminated? What is fit for human beings and what is fit for animals is actually to be seen by the making a study of the physiological nature of each creature. Human beings are not designed in a way which really allows them to properly chew and digest flesh. We are vegetarian by our physiological makeup. Anybody who sees carefully, objectively, who brackets their own desires off to the side, must admit, that human beings are supposed to be vegetarians. On the other hand, tigers are not. You can see a puma or any one of the cat's families out in the wilds of Africa. They hunt, they go after an antelope, they can even go after, a giraffe and kill it with its teeth and claws. They're so powerful they can drag a antelope in their teeth and climb up a tree and put it up into a tree where they can eat it after a number of days, over a number of days. We can't do any of that. We can't run after a giraffe by foot, tackle the giraffe, or any other creature for that matter. Try and even catch a chicken. Can't even do that. But we can pluck fruits from the trees. We can grow grains and vegetables and harvest them because these are fit for human consumption. That's the point. And this is honest work. Prabhupada said farming is the most honest of occupations. Most honest, most noble, he said. A farmer has the most noble occupation. There's nothing, you consider why Prabhupada said that. Because in the act of farming, there's no duplicity. You can't cheat the earth. When you trade, most people today, if you consider what business is, most business is basically involved with trading. Either they're trading commodities, or they're trading, either they're trading real substantial commodities, or they're trading skill, or they're trading information. But in that act of trading, there's always the possibility of cheating, duplicity. Where is the question of duplicity in farming? You think that you can put in, instead of putting a seed, in each spot, you'll skip a few of the spots to save a few seeds, and you'll still get the same amount of crop? No, it doesn't work that way. Or you'll save on your water bill by not watering? That doesn't work. In fact, we understand that there's another element which has to be there, and that is faith, devotion. Every religious tradition, let's say it another way, every ancient tradition was religious. And part of the program of growing, crops was praying to God, because there were certain aspects of farming that were beyond, any type of material arrangement. It wasn't man that provided water, or that made the soil fertile, nor arranged for the sun to shine. All of these were arranged by the Supreme Lord, and therefore there had to be a propitiation. They had to propitiate, whoever they believed God was. But they knew, they weren't God. We don't know that anymore. Now we think we're God. We don't even need earth. We can do that growing, what is that called? The hydroponics. We're not going to grow in earth. We're just going to grow it right in a liquid substance. No more earth. And the substance is not water. It's water-based probably, but it's practically chemicals. Still, they haven't I guess they could duplicate the sun with, electricity. But all of these things are converted energy. No matter how you go at it, when it comes down to the basic elements, it's still made by somebody other than man. But we've entered into the process at so many different points that we pretty much have figured now that we can have, made ourselves believe that we are the person. We are God. We are playing God. We are playing God, Prabhupada says, until one day we wake up in the morning with a toothache. And suddenly God has to go to the dentist. So, we have to understand why farming, therefore, is called noble profession. It is very noble. There's no, and the proof of our nobility is to count how many of us are farmers. Which means that most of the people there are not very noble. However, nobility here is going to be given a more general definition to save all of the non-farmers from, being classified as a dharmic. That anyone who does their duty, their own duty, swadharma, is okay. And they should not be allowed to give up their swadharma. Now, how do we determine what is dharma? We see in the Gita, Krishna says, Chaturta Varna Maya Shristam Guna Karma Vibhavasha. Dharma is determined by guna and karma. Qualities and activities more or less classify a person. And as we saw Krishna say to Arjuna, you may try to give up your activities, your particular activities, but by your qualities, you'll be forced to act in a certain way. So actually, you can't give up your activities. You can only purify the activities. You can perform your activities in a religious way, but you can't give them up. Because by your qualities, by your nature, by your guna, you'll be forced to act in a certain way. Arjuna, you can't be a sannyasi, a renunciate. You can't go off to the mountains and say, I don't want to fight. With the shoulders that you have, with the muscles that you have, with the mindset that you have, you won't make a very good renunciate in the mountains. Of course, Prabhupada does say that Arjuna is a Vaishnava, and a Vaishnava, as a Vaishnava, is full of compassion. He does manifest many qualities which are those of a Vaishnava. But still, Krishna advises Arjuna, you're a Kshatriya, you're by your nature. Arjuna has taken the position of a person within this world. And all of us don't have to act. We don't have to act as if we are in this world. We are in this world. Maybe Arjuna had to act to teach everybody something. For us, we don't have to put on a show. It's real. If people want to make believe they're not in this world, the best way to do it is by realizing they are in this world. By realizing you are in this world, you'll get out of this world. But as long as you try to forget that you're in this world, you will keep being in the world. The whole teaching that Krishna is giving to Arjuna about action and inaction and inaction and action is based on this point. That if you do your actions according to Dharma, there will be no karmic reaction. Therefore, it's like inaction. On the other hand, if you violate Dharma and perform your actions with attachment, or let us say even if you try to avoid doing your Dharma, your actions, then there will be reaction for violation of your Dharma. You'll get reaction. So each of us must recognize what his or her duties are. That's like in that nice little puppet show. Rupanuga had a song to sing. What was that? Yeah, wait. There was you and Chaitanya. Weren't you both in it? Okay.
The guy he was preaching to.
Oh, yeah. Okay, what was the song? Yeah, you and Mathura. Well, let's hear it. Let's hear it. You got to do your duty all the time. I remember that song. So you have to do your duty all of the time. And if you don't do your duty, you will get reactions. Now, this appears to be easy, but obviously it's not. Because in this Kali Yuga, the symptom of Kali Yuga is cheating. People try to get out of doing their duty. And therefore, there is need of transcendental cops, policemen to patrol. Nowadays, the most popular shows on television, I'm told, are police shows. Why? Because the whole population are criminals. It's very obvious that the reason for the popularity and proliferation of police dramas is because, practically speaking, people are always meditating on getting caught for something illegal. And it is said that a criminal actually inside wants to get caught. So people enjoy watching television police dramas because they're all criminals and they enjoy seeing people getting caught. So it is therefore very important that there should be a strong police force. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was such a strong personality, but as you may recall, when he found the two degraded persons, Jagai and Madai, had committed a very terrible crime, and he was about to kill them, he was stopped. He was stopped from killing them. Can we get the air circulating in here? It's really stuffy. He was stopped from killing them, told that in this particular incarnation, your business is not to kill, but to give relief, to kill the sin, to extract the sin from the sinner. If everybody were to be killed for violating Dharma, there'd be nobody left alive today. So, rather, we have to persuade. We have to use the power, turn that off. We have to use the power of persuasion. Or if you want, you can just turn it upwards. Instead of facing it, just turn it up so it circulates there. That's it. That's good. So we have to try to persuade people to do their duty. Coerce them, if you like, is another way, or convince them by argument. Each person has to do their duty. Now, No, I'm not suggesting air conditioning.
Just a fan.
Okay.
Ventilator's not working.
What's that?
Ventilator for the back isn't working.
What's wrong?
I don't know, it's on, but it's not working. It's not sure.
Is there an opportunity, or is there a time when you may not do your duty? Yes. Emergency. Now, this clause, emergency clause, has been grossly taken advantage of. And here's a problem. I have heard devotees say, as soon as I get my act together, I'll start coming to Mangal Arati. As soon as such and such happens, I'll be coming to Mangal Arati. As soon as I get such and such thing in place, I will be able to chant all my rounds. As soon as my business or my work is set up properly, I'll be able to donate monthly contributions. As soon as I become more advanced, a brahmachari says, I will stop looking at the girls. And everybody has got their, what do they say in Spanish? Mañana, mañana. It's tomorrow. It's coming tomorrow. Oh, here's a lady from Spain, right? Is that mañana? Is that the right word? Coming tomorrow. It will come tomorrow. Tomorrow is when I'm going to become Krishna conscious. And about today is an emergency. Today I can't quite do it, but God is very forgiving, very kind, and He understands my problems. The only problem with this philosophy is that, as Prabhupada said, you do some nonsense thing and come to me today, I'll say, okay. Tomorrow you do it again, I will again say, all right. And the third time you do some nonsense thing, again I'll say, all right. But the fourth time, I will not forgive. I was just listening to a tape of Prabhupada say that. So we cannot continue to continuously make this demand that it's an emergency, otherwise it will really be an emergency. If you keep saying emergency, there is going to be an emergency, and that means, you're going to be in trouble. You can't keep crying wolf, as that story goes, Wolf, wolf. Falsely. Krishna's not a fool. You make yourself in a crisis situation. You place yourself in an impossible circumstance, and then you cry emergency. A person sitting on the end of a branch sawing off. And people are saying, you're going to get, this is going to be a problem. You're on the wrong side of the branch. No, it'll be all right. And then you start to, then you fall down. So, some intelligence is required to understand what our circumstance is, and not to place ourselves in such a difficult position that we're constantly put in emergencies. Don't eat too much, don't eat too little. Don't sleep too much, don't sleep too little. Don't create emergencies. Don't create the situations which bring about problems in the performance of yoga. Lead your life so intelligently, so carefully. Think and plan ahead so that there aren't so many emergencies, so that you can perform your dharma properly. Then your progress is assured. Bhagavad Gita, after all, is like a manual for getting out of the material world. It is just that. It is a manual for escaping from the cycle of samsara. More than that, it's a manual in teaching you how to devote yourself to Krishna. And it's not that difficult to do if we utilize our intelligence a bit. So, of course, nowadays, the administrative persons are in a thankless position. Just like parents are in a thankless position, aren't they? You take so much trouble to raise your children, only to find out when they grow up that what? They say goodbye. It didn't happen in the past, A mother who raised her son, what could she be assured of? What could she be assured of if she raised her son nicely? The whole life she would be living with her son, and one day her son would take care of her. And if a mother and father had a daughter, the daughter would always love the parents so much, and just like we read about Radharani, 6 months of the year wanting to live with her parents. Of course, it helped having a husband as she had to get away from him. But the fact is that children love their parents, and they never left their parents. Nowadays, it's not like that. Not like that. I'm using the example of a parent. So if a parent has a thankless task, and note that when the parent disciplines the child becomes upset. The parent tells the child, you shouldn't do this, and the child says, why don't you give me the same freedom that other children are getting from their parents? Children today are becoming so out of control that they sometimes take out legal cases against their parents, and sometimes they don't even bother to do that. They just take up violence. That's also going on. And the same is true for all persons in the position of authority. Therefore, to be an authority today is not a simple thing, not a desirable position. Yesterday at the university, the presidential candidate, Dull, was there, and the place was swarming with security. I mean, it's swarming with security. It took hours to get in and out of that place yesterday. Why? Because even getting near the position of authority, he's in danger. I mean, if he thinks, you can just see what this is all about. Here's a person who has to surround himself with thousands of security men, and he hasn't even gotten the position he wants yet. Just imagine what happens when he gets elected, if he could. So this is a thankless task to be in. Any position of authority. Nevertheless, does a parent stop doing their duty? Does a doctor not tell a patient what the patient needs to hear? Does a spiritual master not chastise? Because the disciple may say, you're too cruel. You're not kind. You're not compassionate. You're not understanding. You're not blah, 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 blah. I should have noted the tape. There was a great tape one day. I just, as Krishna always helps me in such circumstances, I had just finished chastising a disciple for the umpteenth time, and the disciple was feeling that really this was just too much. And then I got this, just happened to listen to this tape, and Prabhupada said, it is the duty of the spiritual master to repeatedly chastise a disciple, and no amount of chastisement is too much. We just had to read for our course in Buddhism the story of a very famous Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhist tantric monk. And his guru, was like unbelievable. Milarepa is the name of the monk. Very famous, super famous. And the guru, Marpa, puts this Milarepa through just, first it gets him to build him a house. And he builds up about 3 stories. He says, okay, take all of the stones down and all the dirt down and put it right back where you got it. And he goes through this about 3 or 4 times till the whole back of this poor, novitiate was, completely covered with sores and everything. Then he tells him, I have some. He goes through one thing after another that this Milarepa has to do for him. He has some enemies. He said you should immediately use your tantric magic and kill them, destroy their fields with hailstorms. One thing after another thing after, and he won't give him. The disciple is just praying for to get the knowledge of the truth from him, and he won't give it to him. He puts him through endless agony. And our teacher, our professor was telling us, Professor Selby was telling us about all different types of things that some persons did to try and satisfy their, teachers. Like, each year they would burn off one finger. or cutting off parts of their bodies. I mean, try to remember that the next time your guru chastises you. I'm not very strict. I haven't required anyone to burn off their fingers or toes. Why? Marpa explains at the end, when it's all said and done, he says, I did all of this in order to help you expiate your various sinful reactions. I tried to help you to get freed from all the karma that you had incurred, from your past sins. I tried to help you to become submissive, because the actual path that you have to follow is going to be very difficult. And if you don't develop the ability to do tapasya, you will never be successful. People forget what it is that the guru is trying to prepare the disciple to do. Especially in our tradition, we're trying to get all the way out of the material world. I was explaining to one professor yesterday, that what is our world view? That there's 8 shells which cover this universe of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. And each one of them is 10 times greater than the one before it. And you, a tiny little spirit soul, who are bound to this earth with a force which is much more powerful than gravity. What is that? Desire. You think gravity is hard to get free from? You can get free from gravity just by some, ordinary fuel. Well, how do you get free from desire? Much more, compelling and binding force than gravity is desire, lust. But we're trying to take you from here back to Godhead. And you want to do it without difficulty? You want to do it without effort? You think that you can do it without tapasya? Now what is the duty of the guru? To teach such tapasya, to strengthen you, just like an Olympic athlete gets muscles in tone. The guru is trying to tone up your spiritual muscles. And you're now a flabby mess. And you're getting toned up and complaining. Slowly, slowly. Don't do it too quick. Well, how much time do you have? How much time do you have? Every moment should be utilized in Krishna's service. What is that way which can extract from us all, of our lust and karma? Well, Prabhupada gave us a formula to chant Hare Krishna 16 rounds a day. But most of the time, he expected that we were going to be engaged in preaching activities. And by that I mean any type of activity which supports and is part of this Krishna consciousness movement. I don't separate being a pujari, or being a cook, or being a teacher, or being a mother, and raising your children as devotees from being, part of spreading the Krishna consciousness movement. I consider that these are all part. But our time should be spent fully absorbed in expanding this Krishna consciousness movement. Not anything else. It will only take us 16 rounds takes 2 hours. To hear the class takes an hour. To go to the RTs takes an hour. That's 4 hours. Sleep 6, 10 hours. Eat and bathe 2 more hours. We're up to 12 hours. You still have 12 hours. Now you have to consider how those 12 hours, maximum amount of your time is going to be utilized. To the degree that we can utilize it to spread Krishna consciousness will be our success. Each of us, therefore, has to find a way to engage his or her ability, qualities, nature in Krishna's service. And that is Swadharma. And only rarely are you allowed to go outside of that without getting a reaction. If you do the wrong thing, you get a reaction. Just like when I was thinking to go back to school, I had to think very carefully, is this a suitable engagement? I had to think about that. Then, of course, I had my dear godbrother, Hridayananda Das Goswami, Maharaj, who was, persuasively arguing that, well, what is the business of learning? It is a Brahminical engagement. What is the business of teaching? It is a Brahminical engagement. What is the proper activity, or what is the proper position for a sannyasi? To study, to teach. The problem today, in fact, is that those who teach are not exemplary. But formerly, it was the duty of the Brahmins and the teachers to teach. And anyone who wasn't a Brahmin or teacher, a sannyasi, what business did they have teaching? So, I had to examine, is this a proper engagement for a sannyasi? It seemed to be that it was all right. But we have to look very carefully because it involves many things which traditionally would not be part of the learning experience, like sitting in between two 20-year-old girls. It was not usually what a sannyasi was, traditionally doing. Well, we have to adjust our mind a little bit to be able to handle that. But that is dangerous. Which proves that it's going to be very difficult interacting within this world to find out classic situations which are, supposed to be ideal. We have to very carefully weigh, whether or not these emergencies are permissible or whether they're going to just be beyond our duty, pull us beyond our duty, where we then get sinful reactions. So we have to take advice of guru, sadhus, shastra. And we have to study what the reaction is. We have to see, and we can't cheat ourselves. Is my lust increasing? Is my desire increasing? On the other hand, is my dedication or service, spirit, attachment to guru increasing? Are the Vaishnavas pleased? That's an indication. All of these things have to be considered. Anyway, the babies are getting restless. A sure sign that my time has been used up. It's an omen. Any questions? Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu.
People say that, well, whatever I'm doing now is what God wants me to do. So when we ask them maybe to increase their service, say, well, whatever God wants me to do, I'll do it. But how is that? How is according to Dharma? Is that, what is that mentality?
Well, it's not a bad mentality. I'll do whatever God wants me to do. The real question that comes down is how they understand what God wants. The real issue there is whether or not they're going to accept that God reveals what. Go see if the kitchen door is closed for the deity kitchen. The real question is whether they will accept that God reveals His desires in specific ways, other than through what He likes, what this person likes. Because most people think that God is telling me what He likes I know it automatically because this is what I like. It must be what God likes. But that's not how we understand what God likes. We understand by reading scripture, by speaking to sadhus, and by hearing from guru. As long as a person is ready to do that, then it's okay. What happened?
It was open.
And was the fan on over the stove? Go check. People don't learn. I tell them 100 times that when they're cooking in the kitchen, close the door and turn on the exhaust fan. Never do it. There's even signs on the door that say that they should do that, and they still don't do it. If I was directly in charge, I would immediately have this under control, because I would charge a fine, $5. I just take off $5 from anybody. As soon as I found them cooking with the door open and the fan on, I guarantee you within 1 or 2 times of doing this, the person will never do that again. But people don't want to apply these.
Just turn the fan on.
So he would have had $10 to pay. It would never happen again. But because they don't do that, this will go on forever. Spare the rod and spoil the child. Yes?
John Kapana, when we were talking about discipline, John Kapana said that if you don't chastise the son or disciple, they'll develop all bad qualities. But if you chastise them and properly correct them, then they'll develop all good qualities.
Prabhupada quoted that very statement in that tape. Chanakapana said that if you don't chastise the child or the disciple, they will develop all bad qualities. But if you do chastise them, they will develop all good qualities. And if they protest too much, it doesn't matter. You still must do it. If you stop doing it, you will spoil that disciple or child. And if they just can't handle it, then they're not a disciple. That means they're not under disciplinary vow. They don't want to be disciplined. Then why? And what is the meaning of disciple? People have a very they use a very soft definition of what disciple means. So therefore, you should study the person who you accept as a guru before accepting him as guru. Because after accepting him, you cannot argue, I doubt your discretion. Then who else do you have to blame if you don't accept your guru with proper consideration? So take your time. And if you say, well, I didn't take my time, then you're stuck. You better just hope that your guru gets more discriminating if you think that he wasn't. Of course, you could hope that if he gets old enough, he'll just get tired. But there's not much chance of that. Prabhupada chastised to the end. I didn't see Prabhupada stop because he got older. He just got more sarcastic. Yes, Ripanuga.
In the past year, we've heard that children generally follow the occupations of their parents, so they didn't have to guess what their dharma was. But nowadays, you see that all children are required to go through so many years of school.
Yeah, but you've got to add something to that point. If children were, in the traditional time, used to follow the occupation of their parents, it was also generally that children who were born with the same nature as their parents. Therefore, they went into the same occupation. Nowadays, between a person's nature and the nature of their children anymore. Not very much. But go on with your point. But I just wanted to add that point.
So, children in this country and in other, I guess, so-called developed countries are required to go through so many years of school. And there are lots of problems because it's not the nature of a lot of those kids to be in school.
Yeah, Prabhupada said that nobody should have to be forced to go to school after a certain point, especially children who are not inclined, if their natures were not suited. They would gain nothing by going to school. So what's the question?
So the question is, should, in our discount society, should we even encourage young men and young women after a certain age to be in school? Or should we try to provide some of the gated say?
It's too general a question, I think. You have to see the individual case. It's complicated. It's too complicated to answer this question in a specific way. It depends on the individual circumstances. I can't say that offhand. But I can say that we are not living in a bubble. We are living within a society at large. And we cannot just be indifferent to the demands of that society. And it is not necessarily untrue that having a college degree, for example, would not be helpful in getting a better job later on, as an example. We're just not living in Vedic society. So we have to take note of what is going on around us. I can't. The question is too broad. I got to keep writing my essay, so I want to end. It's 9:00, and I will directly go for work. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi.